I think Tennessee should be ranked number one. Not the AP, not the coaches. I'm talking about the college football playoff rankings, the first installment that's going to come out later tonight. I'm going to make my case for why Tennessee should be ranked number one right here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, good people? Welcome into it. This is your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Cain. As always, hit me up on Twitter at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols. Subscribe on YouTube if you're watching. Hit that like button, and it's free every single day. A part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day on any of your audio listening platforms. We're going to get into it. I'm going to make my case for why Tennessee should be ranked number one later tonight when the college football playoff rankings are announced. Don't worry, Twitter Tuesday, going to get to your questions in segments 2 and 3. But what's the case for Tennessee? I'm going to tell you all that right now. Again, I'm your host, Eric Cain. I work over at the On3 Tennessee site. That is VolQuest.com. Check out our work over there if you wouldn't mind. And every single day right here on Locked On Vols. All right, so Tennessee, where's it going to be ranked later tonight when ESPN at 7 o'clock reveals the first edition of the college football playoffs? I'm going to be lying to you if I said that I expected to do a segment on this at the 1st of November back in the summer. I'd be lying if I said that I expected that, because I didn't expect that. I don't think you expected that. I know I didn't, but hey, it is what it is, right? Tennessee's 8-0, 4-0 in SEC play. It's about to take on Georgia in a clash of 1 versus 2 unbeatens between the hedges. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. It's going to be some really, really good theater, and I'm excited about that. So why should Tennessee be ranked number one in the college football playoffs tonight, rankings tonight? Let me just put this out there by saying I don't know if Tennessee will be ranked number one. I don't know if Tennessee is the best team in the country. But what I do know right now, aside from Tennessee for sure being in the conversation for being the best team in the country, it has the best resume in the entire country. I'm a big fan of the Football Power Index over at ESPN, and I use that for a lot of my work. I'm going to bring some stats out here for you as I kind of make the case for why Tennessee should be the number one ranked team in the college football playoff rankings later tonight. All right, so strength of schedule, right? Ain't played nobody, Paul. Well, Tennessee has played a lot of people. Tennessee, the only team in the country with 5 ranked wins on the season. TCU has 4. Tennessee's strength of schedule is 19th in the country with 5 ranked wins. Ohio State's strength of schedule is 52nd in the country with 2 ranked wins. Michigan's strength of schedule is 79th with 1 ranked win on the season. Alabama, its strength of schedule is 10th with 2 ranked wins on the season. And Georgia, its strength of schedule is 75th with only 1 ranked win on the season. So easily, Alabama is the closest one with the 10th best strength of schedule in the country and 2 ranked wins. Outside of that, and remember, they have a loss against a ranked team as well. In 3 games against ranked opponents, Alabama's 2-1. That 1 loss coming to Tennessee. Alabama's got the best, closest resume just according to strength of schedule, and it's not even close. Tennessee is 19th. Alabama is 10th, but Alabama has 2 ranked wins. Tennessee has 5 ranked wins at the time of those games. So that's what it looks like right there. The strength of schedule for the remainder of games on the schedule, this according to Football Power Index, it's termed the rank among all FBS teams of remaining schedule strength from perspective of an FBS football team. Ohio State's is 24th, Alabama's is 9th, Georgia's is 7th, Michigan is 10th, and Tennessee's is 5th. All right, what about those efficiencies numbers, right? Well, you know, we talk about this a lot during basketball season. What about the offensive efficiency rating, the defensive efficiency rating? You know, Tennessee was high up in both offense and defense this season, or defense up there, and, you know, offense as well. But let's go back to football, okay? They do that for football teams too. So efficiency rating on the offensive end, Tennessee ranks 3rd in the country. And how that's characterized is it is characterized as offensive efficiency on a 0 to 100 scale based on the offense's contribution to scoring margin on per play basis. adjusted for strength of opposing defenses faced. Okay. So Ohio State's got the best one. It's got a 94.3 offensive efficiency rating. That is ranked number one. Georgia's is 2, 91.7. It's ranked again as 2. Alabama's third, 90.5. Tennessee's is fourth, 88.1. Michigan's is fifth, 87.7. Let's look at defense, shall we? Tennessee's is, well, here, I'll save Tennessee for last. That's not a good sign, right? Ohio State's is fifth. Michigan's is 12th. Alabama's is fourth. Georgia's is number 1. It owns the top defensive efficiency rating per this metric. And Tennessee's is 37th. So again, Tennessee had a great showing against Kentucky. I would like to see that number before the Kentucky game, where it allowed just 205 yards of total offense and with 3 interceptions, takeaways, and only 6 points allowed. I would like to see that before the Kentucky game, see how bad it is. But Tennessee's defensive efficiency rating per the College Football Power Index at ESPN, 37th, when Georgia's has number 1, Alabama's is 4th, Ohio State's is 5th, and Michigan is 12th. Look at the FBI overall, still to this, in terms of this ranking per the Football Power Index. Ohio State is ranked number 1 with an 8-0 record right now. Its projected win-loss record, 12.3 wins, 0.5 losses. So it's expecting them to probably run the table there. Alabama's is number 2, 10.9 wins, so 11 wins, 1.8 losses, so 11-1. This is projection at this point in the season. Georgia's is number 3, 11.9 wins, 0.8 losses. So again, 12-0 really. Michigan's is number 4, 11.2 wins, 1.0 losses. So that's what that looks like. And then Tennessee's is number 5 with 11.1 wins to 1.1 losses. So that's the projection for Tennessee in this metric. It gives percentages in terms of winning the division, winning the conference, making the college football playoffs and national championships and all that and more. Tennessee is given a 25.8% chance to win the East Division. Of course, that you're playing for that this Saturday at Georgia, right? And Georgia, of course, opened up as like a 12.5, or I think it opened around 11. It's crept down to about 8.5 now, but Georgia's the favorite at home between the hedges, of course. Tennessee is given a 25.8% chance of winning the division, an 11.5 chance of winning the conference if it makes it to Atlanta, a 60.1 chance, however, of making the college football playoff, a 25% chance of making the national championship game, and a 10% chance of winning the national championship. Other teams in this conversation, just in terms of winning the national championship, Michigan has a 9% chance of winning the national championship. Georgia has a 24.2% chance of winning the national championship. Alabama has an 18% chance of winning the national championship. And Ohio State has a 31.1% chance of winning the national championship. But again, I just threw a whole lot at you right there, and I understand that. You're probably lost, like, dude, speak English. I get it. Here's what you need to know, at least in my book. This is what I value, okay? It's the beauty of the holder, right? So, what do you covet as a committee member? Are you voting on best resume, which is what I would be voting on right now? Are you voting on who you think is the best team? Tennessee may be the best team, but again, it's got the best resume. 19th ranked strength of schedule, 5 ranked wins. The closest to those 5 ranked wins on the season is TCU, and TCU is all the way down here, ranked number 14 according to the Football Power Index over at ESPN. It might creep up there into the top 2 out potentially, but it likely won't be there tonight, okay? Tennessee's got the best resume. 19th strength of schedule, 5 ranked wins on the season, and it's not even close. So that's how I would vote. I would vote on best resume. Now, the beautiful thing about this is, and I've said it already this week, you get to decide who the best team is in the SEC East. You get to decide who truly is ranked number 1 in the country this Saturday as Tennessee squares off against Georgia. You could decide it, but in terms of what's going to happen tonight, they're going to be looking at all the facts on the papers, the stat sheets, and kind of the eye test. A lot of people have watched Tennessee, have fallen in love with Tennessee because that high-powered offense, they're going to get some love, but again, we will see. My projection for tonight, gosh, people are continuing to text me. My projection for tonight would be that Tennessee finishes second, will be number 2 in the first installments of the college football playoff rankings. I would pick them number 1, but I bet they'll be picked number 2. And again, we'll have to see exactly who it is come Saturday when Tennessee squares off against Georgia. So making the case for Tennessee to be number 1, I think they've got the best resume. Kirk Herbstreit believes they have the best resume. Dan Mullen believes they have the best resume. Desmond Howard believes they have the best resume. Danny Kimmel believes they have the best resume. There's so many other people that believe Tennessee has the best resume. We will see what happens tonight, but I think Tennessee should be the number 1 ranked team when those college football playoff rankings come out later tonight. All right, so we got a fun stuff coming up here. We're going to get into your comments, your questions here on Twitter Tuesday. That's what you have to look forward to right here on Locked On Vols. But first, I want to remind you guys about the thrilling moment in college football, and it's brought to you by Nissan. We do it every single Tuesday here on Locked On Vols. The thrilling designs behind the new lineup from Nissan are intended to empower drivers in vehicles as capable as the driver themselves. All right. When I think of unbelievable abilities on the field for this week's thrilling moment, it's got to be Danico Slaughter. Not his interception, not some of the tackles he made, but the pop he made, creating that first interception from Will Levis whenever he popped Dane Key on a slant, giving a whole lot of cushion. Ball jarred free, went up in the air, and Juwan Mitchell was able to pick that off and return it 54 or 48 yards. That is my thrilling moment of the week. Danico Slaughter, again, not his interception, but the interception he created with the hit stick. This segment has been inspired by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you in an all-new Frontier or Pathfinder today, available now at nissanusa.com. Welcome back into your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. I am Eric Cain. Thanks so much for hanging out with me here today. And now let's get into it. It is Twitter Tuesday time, your mailbag edition of the show where your voice is heard every single Tuesday on Locked On Vols. All right. So first, let's get into some on Twitter at _Cainer. And let's start with Brian. Just kidding. Let's start with Eli. Eli, what is the most crucial game-changing matchup for this weekend, Tennessee and Georgia? I believe Tennessee will sustain and score points, right? So I think it's going to come down to Tennessee's defense making timely stops and creating timely turnovers against that Georgia offense. We'll get into the nuts and bolts on what they, average here and there and everything. But, Stetson Bennett, Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is the All-American tight end. They use him all over the field. They line him up on the line in a bunch formation. They put him out wide. They throw him the football. He leads the team with over 500 receiving yards. They hand the football off to him. He's got 3 carries, 3 touchdowns. He is a dynamic player. How does Tennessee match up with Brock Bowers? Do they send somebody in man with him the entire time? Do they mix up some zone coverages? Do they bring a nickel back and have him follow? I don't know what they're going to do. But that's going to be the most critical matchup. Tennessee's defense, secondary and linebackers matching up against the Mr. Do-It-All Brock Bowers. That's what I'm going to be looking out for. Let's go to Andrew. How is Will Levis still rated as the top quarterback prospect? He couldn't start over Clifford at Penn State and has had mild success at Kentucky. Also, will Byron Young and UT front be able to beat up Stetson Bennett? So again, I'm like you. I saw a mock draft on Monday to where it says Will Levis and CJ Stroud duking it out again in this latest mock draft to be the number 1 quarterback and the number 1 overall player taken in this draft. I don't get it, guys. Will Levis, again, as I said last week, he'll play in the NFL. He's got everything you want from a size and a stature standpoint. He's got a good arm. I don't know if he'll be a starter. I don't know if he'll be a face of a franchise. I don't know if he'll have success, but I do believe he'll be in the NFL, and I get it because you draft on potential, right? He had a horrible game against Tennessee. Don't get me wrong. He's better than that, but I don't get it. When you compare him to CJ Stroud, when you compare him to Hendon Hooker, when you compare him to some other quarterbacks, I don't quite get it. So I'm with you there. I don't know. We'll have to see. As far as your second part of the question, will Byron Young and UT front be able to beat up Stetson Bennett? We'll see, man. That offensive line is pretty decent. It's only allowed 7 sacks on the season. That's it. Compare that to what Kentucky's did going into that game last week, 26. Aramis Mims, or however you say his name, former Tennessee offensive line target. He is questionable for this football game, though, as he got banged up a little bit in the cocktail party. So that would be a big loss if he can't go in this football game. So we'll see. But Tennessee's defensive line, the Leos, the interiors I spoke on yesterday, Dejon Terry and Amari Thomas, playing some good football right now. So I'm excited to see that matchup. Let's go to Randy. Eric, I believe Kirby will do everything he can not to let Jalin Hyatt get behind their defense on Saturday. So I'll look for Brew McCoy and said to have big days, particularly McCoy, who I believe is the best on the team and is making tough contested catches and getting yak. What say you? We'll see, man. It's kind of like whenever you're talking about how do you stop something, you take something away and see if something else can beat you. If you take Jalin Hyatt away over the top, then you do have Cedric Tillman, who's, healthier now than he was this time last week. You have Brew McCoy, who can make you pay. You've got that Tennessee run game. Alabama went dime. Tennessee ran the football in the second half. Kentucky went dime in the second quarter. Tennessee ran the football 8 times on a 75-yard drive that went 10 plays and took 5 minutes off the clock, and Tennessee scored. It's if you take this away, Tennessee's going to get you somewhere else, and that's what good coaching staffs do. So, we'll see. Brew McCoy, it's good to get him involved. Obviously, he led the team in targets against Kentucky. I like what he's doing. His long receptions on the season, though, like the one against Florida, the one against Pitt, he came off bust, right? So he's not the fastest guy in the world, but man, he does go up, make contested catches. So, we'll see. I think Tennessee's in good shape, but we'll see if they can slow down Jalin Hyatt because Alabama couldn't, Kentucky couldn't. There were busts against Alabama. There were busts against Kentucky. So this offense is confusing some defensive backs. Let's go to Orange Crab 42. Do you believe coach was purposely not targeting Tillman in order to fool Georgia into thinking he was not a full go? No, they went to him early and often, man. He didn't play the second half, of course. That was smart. It was a blowout. Well, why risk it? But he played, I want to say 40 snaps or so, maybe 45 snaps. And he caught 4 passes on 4 targets, and they went to him early in the first drive. They went to him twice, I believe, on the first drive. So I'll disagree there. They were getting him active, and they were getting him involved, and he only played a half of football. Let's go to Majors. Do you know if Heupel would be interested in the NFL, or is he considered strictly a college guy? And Eric also wants to know, do you worry about Tony Romo's comments about the NFL possibly coming after Josh Heupel? I don't know. I'm not Josh Heupel. I couldn't answer that. There's been nothing speculated out there in that regard. There's been no talk or whispers. I mean, come on, guys. Tennessee's 8-0 right now. Things are great. I mean, Heupel can do no wrong here. But again, money talks, right? I'm sure they'd pay him a whole lot of money, but I think he is happy here. I don't believe he would ever leave, for another coaching job because why would you? You're having success at a Power 5 in the Southeastern Conference. So I don't think he'd ever leave to go and take another lateral job somewhere. So, Lane left to go to his dream job. I don't think Heupel would want to go back to Oklahoma. I mean, potentially, maybe, but he kind of dismissed that last year. I don't think they're going to fire Brent Venables after 1 year, so I wouldn't worry about that. So, Romo made that comment. I saw everybody getting in a stir. Guys, Tennessee's 8-0 right now. It's, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Tristan Smith. Did we stumble upon the new starting secondary? What happened Saturday was simply amazing. I don't know if Danico Slaughter and Brandon Turnage will be your starting corners the rest of the season. I'll tell you this, once they feel like, probably this week as well, Kamal Haddon's a full go. I mean, I expect Kamal Haddon to be out there for every snap he can possibly be out there. He's still the best cornerback you have, even though he played a horrible game against Florida and he's looked suspect at times. He's still the best one. But I would keep Danico Slaughter back there somewhere. He's earned it. He has earned it. Now, he had a good game. What happens when he hits some adversity? We'll find out. But in terms of, are those your 2 starting cornerbacks? No, I won't say that when everybody's healthy. But I do think Danico Slaughter should stay back there. I also think Wesley Walker should play a little bit more as well. He had a great game against Kentucky. Let's go to John. Will D. Williams be getting any more playing time in the secondary? He played cornerback in JUCO, correct? He did. He also returned kicks, which is what he's doing at Tennessee right now. And we'll have to see in terms of meaningful snaps. I don't think D. Williams is going to get many of those this year right now. Case in point, they played a walk-on at the end of the Alabama game instead of D. Williams and freshman Christian Harrison at this point. It's no indictment on those guys, especially Harrison, just true freshman, right? D. Williams was progressing in fall camp before his injury, but I just don't think that the comfort level is there right now. So I would not look for him to get extended playing time in the secondary right now outside of his punt return duties. All right, last one here for this segment. Let's go to Cal. Can Kirby Smart come up with a defensive scheme to slow UT down? I kind of spoke on that earlier. Like, you take one thing away, what are you going to do about the other toys Tennessee has? I think he'll try, but I think Tennessee's coaching would adapt to that and have something for it. What does UT's secondary need to focus on most in preparation this week? Tackling in space, not missing tackles, mixing things up, timing up blitzes, stuff like that. I just think Tennessee is going to try to throw a bunch of different looks at Georgia. I do. We'll see what happens, but I think you always got to keep them guessing, right? You don't want to do the same thing over and over and over. So that's kind of what I would do. We'll come back with some more mailbag questions next, right here on Locked On Vols. But I want to remind you guys about one of our proud sponsors in Sweat Block, Mike. He was a Vegas resort concierge. He was sweating through his suit coat on the job, less than an hour on the clock. Not anymore, thanks to Sweat Block. Mike was able to fix his problem with Sweat Block. Sweat Block wipes are a must-have for everyone's toiletry bag. Whether it's a big presentation coming up or a hot date, everyone can benefit with those Sweat Block wipes. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, give Sweat Block a try today. Save 20% off with the promo code Locked On. It's sweatblock.com. Again, 20% off with the promo code Locked On. That's at sweatblock.com. It's also sold on Amazon. All right, guys, welcome back into your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Cain. Appreciate you guys for watching on YouTube. As always, please subscribe if you haven't already. We're nearing 5,000, guys. 5,000. That is exciting stuff, especially since we didn't put this podcast on YouTube until February. So great work there. Appreciate you guys. And of course, for listening wherever you listen. All right, back to the mailbag questions. Let's go to the YouTube right now. Brian chimes in. 2 questions. Why are we having to share second place all year long? It's been 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. The top 3 have to share second. Just don't understand why Tennessee has to share second. All right, so Tennessee did get more first place votes. I believe it was 18 compared to Ohio State's 15. But again, you have, I don't know how many AP voters. You got tons of AP voters, and a lot of people probably put Ohio State above Tennessee, or just as many people put Ohio State above Tennessee as they did Tennessee above Ohio State, and that's why they come to a tie. I think it should be decided on first place votes. Tennessee had more than Ohio State, but that's not how it is. So, I mean, it simply was a tie based on the amount of AP voters. We've seen it before. It's not common, but we have seen it before in recent memory. Number 2 from Brian here. Is Hyatt in the running for Heisman or the wide receiver award? Sorry, I can't spell it. Dude, I got to Google that every single time I write Biletnikoff Award. He's getting a lot of consideration for the Biletnikoff Award, but I'm telling you, man, if he keeps his production up, he will creep into the Heisman conversation. Now, here's the thing. Will the Heisman committee have 2 finalists from the same school? I would say no. Will Anderson Jr. was not a finalist last year, along with Bryce Young. Should have won the whole damn thing, but that's beside the point. You guys know my thoughts on that. But he should be creeping up in that conversation for Heisman. He really should. You've seen some, writers and journalists around the country who cover college football have kind of expressed that a little bit over the weeks, but we will, we'll have to see. But he is 100% in consideration, if not in the driver's seat for the Biletnikoff. But I expect him to get some more consideration for the Heisman as well, especially if he keeps this up. Let's go to the DMs. Let's finish off here with some DMs. Go to Danny. Danny says, if Tennessee beats Georgia and takes care of business the rest of the year and makes it to the SEC championship game versus Alabama, what's the possibility we beat Saban twice in 1 year? If we do that, has there ever been a team to beat him twice in 1 year since he's been at Alabama? Teams don't typically play each other twice in a season. It's very rare, especially if you're in the same division. So for Saban to have played anybody twice, of course, it could have meant later on in the college football playoff. That hasn't happened. Saban, of course, played Georgia, coached against Georgia twice last year. So lost to anybody twice in the same season? The answer is no. I went and looked it up and talked with people to Alabama to verify it. Saban has never lost to anybody twice, the same team twice in 1 year. So again, it would need to be that team from the SEC East so they can meet again in the SEC championship game. That's the likely scenario. But that did not happen. Of course, Alabama and Georgia last year met in the SEC championship game and then met in the national championship game. But of course, they split field that one. Let's go to Trevor. Trevor says, 2 questions. Feel like Alabama is all around a better team than Georgia. I would definitely take Alabama's offense over Georgia's, and I feel like their defense is on the same level or pretty similar. Am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. Going into the Alabama game, Alabama was the best pass defense in the SEC. Alabama was the best rush defense in the SEC. Alabama's got a really talented player in Will Anderson Jr. on the edge. Georgia has a really talented player in Nolan Smith on the edge. However, Nolan Smith, news from Athens Monday, likely not to play in this football game. He's got a pec issue, one of a couple of injuries for Georgia that's very much noteworthy going into the game. You got Nolan Smith is likely not going to play. A.D. Mitchell, you'll have to see exactly if he can make his comeback. He's not been a factor this season, got hurt in week 2, very similar to Cedric Tillman's injury, high ankle sprain. We'll have to see if he gets back. I already mentioned Mims on the offensive line. Potentially, he won't go. He's questionable. There's one other one. Is it not McIntosh, but Milton? Milton potentially has got a groin or quad injury. He's questionable as well. But no, you're not wrong there. I mean, Georgia's defense it's really solid. I mean, it's given up 10 points a game, only 262 yards of total offense an outing, which is really, really solid. It's holding opponents to 29% on third downs, which is an incredible stat. 32 of 111 attempts teams have converted on third down. It's just massive. It's got 9 takeaways, which is not a whole lot, but again, it's more than a couple, right? So it's really, really solid, but so was Alabama at the time Tennessee, and still is at the time Tennessee played them. Number 2, if Tennessee makes it the SEC championship, I'm not liking our chances of a rematch against Bama. What is the most we could lose by and still get in, assuming the SEC is in a spot to get 2 in? Yeah, you have to see where the Big Ten is at that point, where TCU is in at that point. Typically, the SEC is always going to be in a good spot to get 2 in potentially. Just don't get blown out. If you go up there and get blown out by Alabama in that situation, no one, recency bias is a thing. You're not going to put a team like Tennessee in that lost by 21 or 28 in the college football playoff the week before. So just don't get blown out. That would be the easiest way, in my opinion. Let's go to Clayton. Clayton wants to know, given the incredible success this year of UT, how much does Heupel stand to make through incentives for the team's performance? Clayton, we're running short on time, and I apologize. There's a lot of your guys' question. I'll try to message you guys back over the week and answer those. I'm not going to have time to get in the day, and I do apologize. But Clayton, I'm going to get your first question here. And I went and I texted some people, and here's what I got for you. All right. You're going to get one or the other here. If you win the SEC championship game, you get $300,000. If you appear in the SEC championship game, you get $100,000 in worth of incentives. You can't max those together and get $4,000 for appearing and winning in it. So if you make it to the SEC championship game, you get at least $100,000. If you win it, you get $300,000. Also, if you win the national title game, you get $500,000. If you appear in the national title game, you get $400,000. Again, you don't get both of those, but again, you get $400,000 for making it, $500,000 potentially for winning it. If you appear in a semifinal game, you get $300,000 worth of incentives. If you appear in a New Year's Six bowl game, you get $200,000 in incentives. If you just make it to a regular bowl game, which he already has, you get $100,000 in incentives. For the final polls, you get one of the following here. If you finish in the top 5, it's $150,000. Finish in the top 10, it's $100,000. Finish in the top 25, it is $50,000. If you're coach of the year, if you're national coach of the year, and you could get multiple one of these, okay? If you're national coach of the year, you get $100,000 bonus or incentive. If you win SEC coach of the year, you get a $50,000 incentive. And again, you can win both of those because they're 2 separate things. So I hope that makes sense to you. So in terms of the SEC championship game, you can't get them both, but if you win it, you get $300,000. If you lose it, you get $100,000. In terms of just bowl games or college football playoff, you win the whole thing, $500,000. You appear in the college football title game, $400,000. A semifinal game, $300,000. New Year's Six bowl game, $200,000. A bowl game, $100,000. And then for the final polls, top 5, $150,000. Top 10, $100,000. Top 25, $50,000. And then you can win both of these: National Coach of the Year, $100,000, and SEC Coach of the Year, $50,000. Good question. And good reminder, because I would not have remembered those things either. All right, let's go to K. Wayne. Chimes in every single week. K. Wayne 1800. Out of the defenses we have faced, where do you think Georgia's D ranks? If it's not 1, it's 2 to Alabama. Those 2 are at the top for sure. How do you think they will attack Tennessee? I think they're going to mix things up, try to keep Hendon Hooker guessing, going to bring pressure, but also mix some things up as well. I mentioned that earlier. If Charles and Haddon are back, do you expect Slaughter to get a lot of reps at corner? I do. I mean, I really do. He earned that. He earned that with this play until you give a reason to not be out there. And there might be some, okay, but against Kentucky, there wasn't. And so I think he's earned that. Last one is going to go to Darius. First off, huge fan of the show. Appreciate it, man. I don't want to be a downer because I believe Tennessee can beat Georgia, but say we don't beat them. Do you think, what is the worst case scenario? Do you think Tennessee drops out of the top 4 to 5, lose out on the playoff? Do we win out and still have a shot? Thanks for your time. Yeah, it just depends on how everything goes. Again, you don't want to get blown out. I don't think Tennessee's going to get blown out, but if you lose this game, you don't want to get blown out because that'll be a really sour taste in the mouths of the committee. And Tennessee doesn't have another big game on the schedule to kind of get back and right some of those wrongs. Remember, Tennessee's already beaten 5 ranked teams on its schedule. So outside of the Georgia game, you're on the road at South Carolina, you're at home against Vanderbilt and Missouri. So, not a whole lot left after that. So don't get blown out. It depends on what the Big Ten does, depends on what TCU does in the Big 12. Also, if you lose closely, you miss out on a chance to go to Atlanta, you can still potentially leapfrog one of those teams and get in because the SEC champion is going to go no matter what. Tennessee could potentially leapfrog either Georgia or Alabama and get in as well. So again, it's kind of too early to call. It's all about how the rest of the season plays out. I know that's kind of a suckish answer, but it's the truth. It is the truth. All right, guys, that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Vols. Thank you so much for making Twitter Tuesday a priority for you guys, getting in those questions, those comments, and everything else. If I didn't get your question, I apologize. I'm going to try my best to DM you guys back and kind of answer it. I just kind of running out of time here on a Tuesday. College football playoff rankings, the first round of it comes out tonight, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Where's Tennessee going to rank? I think Tennessee should be number 1. I bet Tennessee will be 2. Let's find out. We'll watch it tonight at 7 o'clock. But regardless, Tennessee has a chance to play it on the field against Georgia coming up later this weekend. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. For games that matter the most, the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with the local experts and insights that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, it's available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you find your podcast. Same time, same place. Let's talk about where Tennessee finishes off in the college football playoff rankings tonight. That's coming up on a Wednesday show, plus Josh Ward, all that and more tomorrow on Locked On Vols.